man. I didn't have the video ready and I started the record button.
Oh,
real
shit.
real
Yeah,
cart
there you go.
before the horse stuff.
In a galaxy far, far away came a podcast from out of this world.
With only a 3,720 to 1 chance of succeeding. Oh dear.
But don't worry, it wasn't a trap. The Force was strong with them. And so it worked.
Welcome to the Countdown Strikes Back, a Star Wars podcast. We talk all things a galaxy far, far away. And we've been in the middle of our Mandalorian recap show. We were talking episode by episode, talking about what we see, all the fun trips around the galaxy. We've already visited Tatooine. This week, we're visiting another very famous... I already forgot the name of this planet. When a planet is mostly people. Did someone write that down? Whatever.
It's Hosnian Prime.
Yeah, it's something similar to that. We visited the highest point on Coruscant too. There's a lot going on in this episode. We're really excited to talk about it. My name is Emmanuel.
Hey, it's Andrew.
Hey, it's Brent.
What's up? It's John.
Umate. That's the name. It's the highest point.
Umat.
Oh shoot, I said it wrong. Umat.
I don't know.
So,
I was also
what?
lying. No one reacted to my Hosnian Prime joke because it's a clone of Coruscant, but whatever. That's what I was.
Oh jeez.
That's why I made that earlier. Yo,
There's a-
Delphin thought I was actually like, it was true. He was like, yeah.
They were clones.
They said it in this episode. They're talking about how there's a trillion people there, and then when a planet is mostly city, it becomes some other thing. Somebody look it up and send it to us.
They said city planet. They said one of multiple city planets, and I was like, "There's a bunch of Coruscants." That's
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into the world building of this episode because there's some very interesting stuff.
Well, even like my joke earlier, Hosnian Prime, which was destroyed in The Force Awakens, looked like a Coruscant-like planet. Like it was a giant. Yeah. It was a giant city planet that's also like referenced in the High Republic books.
At some point, Dave Filoni is going to tie that into one of his shows and like start fixing those movies' decisions, but not yet.
It's called Ecumenopolis.
They didn't say that in the show.
Happy Tongs Day to us all. There's a lot that goes on in this app. I'm going to just briefly talk about the 5 days on Coruscant. Unlike 7, like we have Prime Day, Centax Day, Tongs Day, Zell Day, and Bendu Day. Bendu Day. Kind of wild.
Yeah, Bendu Day is like named after the monks, the Bendu monks that worshipped a certain, I don't know, something that's not, it's very old, but they used to worship something. And they were called the Bendu monks.
So Tongs Day is right in the middle. I think that's like a Wednesday joke, like a hump day joke that they're doing.
Yeah.
Today it's also Mandalorian inspired, apparently. Like the Tongs are a race of the first, like the ancestors of the Mandalorians on that
John,
planet.
you know a lot about the days on Coruscant.
I looked it up afterwards because I was like, what the fuck is this?
So what's their work week like? Do you think they work every day? That Tongs Day is middle of the week?
Their weekend is only one day.
Wow. Probably Bendu Day.
These rehab people looks like they work a lot, like every week, and they're like kind of like told like, you should be grateful for working every day.
How long until Amazon buys the rights to Prime Day on Coruscant? And it becomes Amazon Prime Day, and everybody has to go to their Amazon app and watch. What is on Amazon Prime? I can't think of one thing.
Like...
The Boys.
Season 2 on Coruscant.
And watch The Boys. I'm gonna give you a brief recap of what happens in this episode. Also, before we start, shout out to Lee Isaac Chung, the Oscar-nominated director of Minari, who is about to direct the Twister sequel for directing this episode. And there's a lot. This is a lot like Minari, I think, is my thing. It's very obvious that this is a Minari-inspired episode. But this episode begins with Jin, Grogu.
You always say that. That's not his name.
Din. What did I say?
You said Jin.
Jin. Oh, Din, Grogu, and Bo-Katan leaving Mandalore. Bo-Katan.
Jin Darin.
Din, I think of Dijon mustard whenever I see D and J anywhere.
You're getting like the first letters like.
You're talking about Din Arso?
Yeah, I'm talking about
him. Stop.
Din mustard. Bo-Katan's house gets blown up And then we leave them because this episode's not about them. This episode is titled The Convert. And we may be talking about them, a convert later on, but you get a 2 for the price of 1. You get 2 converts here because this episode is mostly centered around Penn Pershing, Amnesty scientist L52, who was a part of Moff Gideon's, I don't know, sinister plans in the previous seasons. He is reformed and back on Coruscant, giving big speeches. I don't know who goes out on a weekend to go listen to a reformed scientist talk about DNA splicing, but he's selling out. He's a big act right now.
Yes,
I tried to get Ticketmaster tickets, but
you got the fees. Yeah, those fees killed you.
It's your first mistake right there.
Yeah. Anyways, he goes to his Amnesty compound where he meets a bunch of other Amnesty officers, including Officer G68, one away from a really funny G number. But they are, trying to figure out their life on Coruscant. He's doing data entry, but still has that itch to be in the DNA splicing game and almost convinces himself that it is a necessary thing that he needs to continue to help the Republic. G68 helps him escape the Amnesty compound, and they venture into a destroyed Star Destroyer where they steal a mini lab only to have G68 turn on Pershing, or the scientist who gets mind flared. There's a little biscuit eating at the very end of this, so we're not sure if Amnesty Officer G68 is on the up and up. And then back with Din and Grogu and Bo-Katan, they both have proven that they've bathed in the waters of Mandalore and they haven't taken their helmets off. So they're back in with the what did they call them? The collective, or what did they call the armorers friend?
I don't know. What the fuck are they? The watch?
The
Children of the Watch.
The Enclave, yeah.
Yeah.
The Enclave.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. We just briefly talked about biscuits, but biscuits are actually a really big part of this episode. Drew, what did you think about the convert? Did it convert you?
Yeah, for sure. This was basically like a little taste of the Mandalorian. I mean, the Andor.
Mandalorian,
which I've been kind of itching for it, and kind of I feel like addicted to it, I guess, to that quality of Star Wars. And
good quality.
And so I know I think I work at a comic book shop, and I talked to a lot of people, and everyone was like, it was boring. I'm like, damn, we like 2 different versions of Star Wars, and I am okay with that. I get why people show up to see the Mandalorian. They want to see Grogu, and they want to see that Darksaber swinging around.
But they get that dogfight in the beginning. That should have tied him over.
Yeah, and I mean, and what happens at the beginning and at the end is amazing. I mean, we've gotten 2 dogfights this season, which we haven't got in all the previous other seasons. So it was really, really cool to see both of them on their that they're both such excellent pilots. Yeah, I guess all Mandalorians are just badass pilots too. But and then the at the very end, the them accepting even Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan kind of seemed like she had no people anymore after she lost all hope in her creed or in her people also. So it's cool to see her reintegrated into something like that. I want to see what the dynamic's going to be. If she's going to want to be the leader, or she's going to be okay settling in. But the stuff in between was amazing. Seeing Coruscant post the Emperor is pretty wild, because I don't think we've been there in show or live action. So it's really, really cool to see that it prospering and stuff, because I know Coruscant was basically under the Emperor's thumb the whole time, because that was like kind of more of like a base of operations for him. So it's cool to see it still thriving. And I loved all the references here. The reason I looked up the days of the week and what how many they were and all their names was because of the Bendu Day. And obviously we remember the Bendu played by Tom Baker in Star Wars Rebels, which is an awesome little fun fact, or a Easter egg that most people, if you didn't watch the animated stuff, would kind of fly over your head. But it made me.
No,
yeah, were the monks before
before the Jedi. That's wild.
Right,
they predate Jedi.
Yeah, and the other Bendu was the one in the middle. But yeah, the rest of it is awesome. You can hear the March of the Resistance playing in the background of the fair. Getting to see a fair like in Star Wars was wild. They're eating popsicles, this type of ice cream that glows, and you see this droid on stilts, juggling, and you see a magician, and it's just awesome to see that type of stuff. I think in Star Wars, stuff that we haven't seen before. We talked about this in our Bad Batch episode, but things that they always go up against the nature in animal form, crate dragons and huge spiders and big rolling snapping turtle alligators, all that stuff. But we never really see this other type of real life stuff other than in a place like Andor or in Clone Wars. So it's really refreshing to see Mando kind of take cues from that and it adapting and learning and still pulling out new tricks that we haven't seen in this show. So yeah, really, really awesome episode. I love the stuff they covered. This and whatever's happening in Bad Batch seems almost on purpose on the type of stuff they're covering. I don't want to spoil Bad Batch if you haven't seen Bad Batch, but yeah, it definitely seems intentional because they might start to MCU it up where it's all connected by something. I wouldn't doubt that if we see something in Jedi Survivor that's a little bit more connected than it's ever been, and all these things that are popping off all at the same time, Skeleton Crew and Ahsoka and Star Wars Visions. It makes sense to kind of start to make this bigger story for modern Star Wars to be remembered by.
Yeah, for sure. There's it's crazy because you talked about a lot of things, but there's still so much in this episode that we can like dive into and just talk about for an hour just on one element. I'll leave a lot for everyone to talk about. Brad, what did you think about this episode? If you had that mind flare, what would you blast out of your mind? Or would you just go to 10? Would you just go to 11 and let it ride?
I just crank it to 11 and just fucking just
Flare
zap
me.
it all.
Yeah.
Who am I? Take it all.
I want to drool.
Hey, it's apparently a nice feeling. Is what the doctor says. The Mon calamari.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the right race, right? Species. But yeah, this was a cool episode. It was like kind of two different shows. Like we got our kind of like bookended Mando stuff, which was cool. Like we opened the episode with a really awesome like chase. Another kind of like like aerial combat fight scene, which is cool because like there hasn't been much of that like in Star Wars live action like in general.
Did you know that in the Din stunt suit that is Tom Cruise actually flying?
Wow, Cruise is in there.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but that makes a lot of sense.
He was already up there for Top Gun Maverick, and they said, "Can you put this helmet on?"
Yeah,
just like a different planet. They're just like, "Hey, we got this nearby planet. We're not filming," and just like,
I mean, I joke, but very Top Gunny moments in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, yeah. And it's fun to see. Like I have kind of missed action scenes like that in my live action Star Wars. So that was cool. But yeah, I mean, the bulk of this episode was with Dr. Pershing and kind of like the amnesty program and stuff on Coruscant. And I really appreciated all that stuff. I thought there were so many cool little Easter eggs within that, but also a lot of world building that, I don't know if it was like the right time to start doing that, like within the middle of a Mandalorian episode. But listen, I liked it, and like it feels needed, I guess. Like it because like this era in Star Wars and the timeline and like what is going on in like the political landscape and the many worlds and stuff like that. It just we haven't seen it covered very much in anything, and so like getting a lot of context for the state of the New Republic and like the ways that it's trying to be better than the Empire and the ways that it's like failing at improving on the Empire is stuff that I thought was really cool to see. And like I've also been, and I probably talked about it on this show in the past season or two, but like it's also something I've been wanting to see in Mandalorian is like they've done the kind of like Star Wars Western thing. Especially season 1 of Mando was like heavily, like the Western kind of like out in the, undeveloped, uncharted areas of Star Wars. But I think it's really cool to tie in Coruscant and to like build that world up a little bit. And it makes me wonder if it will connect in Mandalorian or if it's stuff being set up for different shows. Like we already know because of Boba Fett that like things can be dropped in the middle of a show that aren't even going to really affect this show. And it's not really, I don't know, maybe it is a criticism. I do feel kind of weird about it, but bottom line is it was cool to see that stuff. And it feels important to, this era to start kind of like giving us context for the world, like New Republic and stuff like that. So, I'm sure we'll talk about like Mount Umont and stuff like that and the High Republic tie-in stuff of it all, which was cool. Really, really cool episode.
John, what'd you think about this ep?
I'm going to agree with Brent. I don't want to touch upon my initial feelings of what Brent said at the beginning just yet, because I think that's probably a bigger discussion for like maybe like towards the end of our episode. But I did like this episode a lot. I was very surprised about the content, especially the storylines with Dr. Pershing.
Pershing.
Like that whole program of like, that rehabilitation program that ex-Imperials go to is like, pretty crazy, wild like concept in an era of peace, like where everything's like demilitarized, like, they're saying no to his like, his request to do more research, which, naturally so. It's kind of weird, they want it like he wants to continue genetic engineering. I know he tries to spin it to like cloning organs, so like, people dies, and that's like a very wholesome, like I guess like ideal or like a wholesome like, motivation to do
It's very sci-fi.
Very sci-fi.
Spoiler alert for The Island, starring Ewan McGregor.
But it's like,
Second time you brought up the fucking island on this.
That's what the island clones are for on the island. Their organs.
So like the concept itself, though, getting that outside of a very like I don't want to say like non-serious because that's not what I mean, but like getting that out of like a kids show, like, because most of the cloning storylines are handled like in Clone Wars and in Bad Batch stuff. To get that out of that and to put it in the context of a Mandalorian episode is pretty wild. And then, just seeing stuff in general, like seeing the Coruscant, Drew had said that like spending time on Coruscant with the characters and like seeing how it looks like in a post Return of the Jedi world is like, man, that's insane. The pace of it is kind of like weird, and I can see how a lot of people probably don't like this, especially because it's not a Mando focused step. And I think this is where I'm going to come back. I'll come back around to this part, but like have it not feeling that, I can see some people kind of not digging it.
The Baby Yoda quota was not met.
Yes, exactly. And so like, that's what people, well, even then, like people, I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it. I mean, this show, I think people are treating this show as like, this is our pew pew boom 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 slash, like action show. And when you throw something like an Andor-ish type of thing here, it makes the whole thing, like the whole Star Wars thing, feel very disjointed. Like you don't know, like it's really wild that you get like stuff like this in this episode. It's like it's as much as a weird jump as getting a Mando episode in the middle of Boba Fett. Like it's kind of like, are you throwing these things intentionally to be like, oh, it's all Star Wars, but like, but some people are gonna be like, blah, I don't want my talking drama episodes mixed in with my dogfight episodes or some shit.
Yeah. There has probably already been more dialogue in this season than all of the first season.
Season 2, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I love that. I love learning more, especially because like more about the lore, and then not knowing what happened between that that officer at the very end, 68 or 69 or whatever, 68. Not knowing if she's like, I don't even know. Like, I mean, I know it's probably hinted that this is like a first order type of like uprising thing, but like, or what if it's just like a very like extremist, like fanatic, like, extremist like version of like the New Republic stuff. Like maybe it's just like people just can't get out of that mentality, and they're like, oh, and maybe that's what leads to the rise of the First Order, which I'm assuming is hinted at with the sheer amount of like TIE fighters in that scene on Mandalore. And
did you not see the license plate? They all said Exegol.
Yeah, they all said Exegol and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh wait, no,
That's where they
Starkiller Base first. They all said.
sorry. No,
yeah, they
These
have to-
guys are
Oh,
straight
they
from
came from
Mexico.
there.
from
yeah.
the OG. Well, I was thinking those might be Thrawn's gang. But
Well, that's what would be cool too if there would be
3
Thrawn
license
stuff.
plates.
Because 2 different storylines here, like very, very. I thought they were going to connect them. That's why I was like, oh, they're showing a Rise of a First Order type of faction, and this is where all these like fucking TIE fighters came from. But I guess rewind that. We get that beginning and closing episodes with Mando and Bo-Katan, which is pretty cool. The dogfight was a little disappointing at first, but became badass. I want to echo that no dogfight has ever matched the feeling of Return of the Jedi's dogfight scenes. Like those fucking space battle like dogfight scenes are gold. I don't know why Star Wars doesn't want to do more of that shit. Like that to me as a kid was like cooler than the lightsaber stuff because and I feel like I'm showing my age, but back in the day they were just swinging their lightsabers. It wasn't the fucking choreographed dance that they have in the prequels. So when I was growing up, like I loved the space battles. I loved like seeing the Falcon go around and shoot asteroids, and then love seeing like the giant Death Star battles. Like that's what literally Star Wars, like you're warring in the stars, is to me, because like that's the literal thing. So yeah, you're right, Brent. We do need more dogfights. We need better dogfights where the
get them in space, like the opening.
Get them
in
in
the first
space
episode.
Yeah, see, like that budget I feel like was a little higher because having them against like just a white background is kind of like, well, like you can see the CG a little bit rougher and stuff. But it is pretty cool, and I think Bo-Katan's ending for this episode is probably one of the more interesting things. I don't know what she was feeling underneath that helmet, but it looked like she was kind of like
we'll never know anymore.
Yeah,
we'll never. She's gone from the show. She's done.
Oh yeah, because she's not gonna take her helmet off anymore. No, I think some sort of internal, because Bo-Katan's internal struggle was like these fucking cults caused all this divide. Like, that's the reason we lost against the Empires, because like there was cults, there was like factions being like, oh, the faction that Mando's a part of, they believe that because the majority of Mandalorians moved away from the old ways, that's why like a prophecy came by, and like that's why like Mandalore was bombed by the Empire and stuff like that. And Bo-Katan thinks the same thing, but they're just kind of like on the opposite end of the coin. It's like, well, if you guys wouldn't have radicalized, then we would have had the people to save our planet and stuff like that. So I think like the ideologies will still clash. And so I think Bo-Katan may still eventually remove her helmet and be like, no, fuckers, like I'm not,
Yeah, I mean,
I think the Mythosaur.
Come on.
That's what I'm saying. It's already clashing.
Big...
She didn't tell them about the Mythosaur.
She didn't, but that's the
She's
whole
scared.
thing too. Is like there's also, she might be scared, but also maybe she's like keeping that. Maybe she's thinking that like for herself. She's like, oh yeah, I can ride this fucking Mythosaur and shit. Like I saw it.
If you saw Jesus at the mall, would you tell people? No.
No, you would keep him in your pocket.
No,
like, hey,
you just show up riding him.
Or you.
Well, you have to grab him and you have to kidnap Jesus so that you can prove it. First of all,
yeah.
Well, it's
and
like
you fly him
would
in.
be like,
yeah.
And
if it wasn't
like
Jesus the whole time, sorry.
Well, just like Bo seems like the type of person from her history of like just kind of wanting. She was selfish in the early her early appearances, but I'm just saying like she might be the type of person to be like, hey Jesus, I know you're alive. You should give me your phone number, or else I'll tell everybody you're alive, or something like that type of thing. Like just kind of like using the Mythosaur for her own gain. Like,
sounds like a Pauly Shore movie that you just pitched.
Oh yeah, like yeah.
Jesus, you gotta go with me to the Kappa Kappa Thai party.
Yeah, exactly. Like Jesus is an amnesiac, and
yeah.
That's what
that's an NBC drama waiting to happen right
there. Good episode though. Probably my favorite episode of Mandalorian yet, which is probably not a whole lot of people's favorites, but probably my favorite episode yet. And it's
plus we got that Andor recency bias where we're just
yeah. I just want a better
we're just
planned out Star Wars. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think
just like Jesus was at the mall.
Someone online was saying something about Andor and Mando. It's like I like both. I just kind of like there was a lot of care and a lot of thought in Andor, and I want that same for all types of Star Wars, goofy or otherwise, But good episode of Mandalorian, really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. There were 3 things that I took away a lot. The first was Coruscant, which we've talked about a lot, and quite honestly, a lot of Coruscant action in the prequels and in. I would say a lot of Clone Wars happens on Coruscant, but it's good, I think, to have it as a way to, like Brent said, contextualize the show. It kind of has that
Yeah.
Canto Bites thing of no matter who was in charge, these guys were fine. There's a scene where
I
they
love
didn't even
that, yeah.
remember which one was there. They're like, oh, I keep forgetting
Empire,
the names.
Republic, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
It is like a capital, and it might be a little bit of a jaded view to think that, you know, if you go to Washington D.C., they actually don't care about what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly,
and I
yeah.
like the juxtaposition between everything that Mando sees, everything that's happening on the Outer Rim, the destruction on Mandalore, and they're trying, like, those are people in exile trying to figure stuff out, and it's not making a blip on Coruscant. They do not care. They're going to like weird stuff, but it's
opera
really
opera
houses to listen to ex-Nazis talk. It's just fun times in Coruscant. And again, Ticketmaster, those fees too high. But it and I loved all the little stuff about disbanding the rebellion because they don't need them anymore, and the slight difference, because the second thing that I really was drawn to, something we've talked about already a lot, which is the reforming program or the amnesty program, and the idea that's implemented here, which is the difference between good and bad is like a couple degrees in perspective. It's not a massive delta.
From my
you're
point
good,
of
you're
view,
bad.
the Jedi are evil.
Well, yeah, it's like a tiny amount of change. They're still using the mind flayer. They're not killing you or getting rid of you like the clones.
It's literally the scene from A Clockwork Orange at the end where they're like, "Hey, we're gonna do this fucked up shit to make you good."
So it's kind of the amnesty program is really good, but I think having Pershing, who I'm not sure if maybe they knew he was going to be a big character. I guess they did, because he had such a kind of a bigger role, I guess, even in the episodes he was in. But I just enjoy the way his character was written and his attachment and his journey through this episode. That's why, like, I get it if not a lot happens, but the writing in this episode is insanely good, because he talks about the biscuits. He sees the biscuits. And then we see the biscuits kind of become more of like it's something I long for from the past. And so we see the bad lady in the very end eat the biscuit, and you're like, oh shit, she's also kind of nostalgic for the good old days, or maybe she has that purpose that we don't know yet that is kind of secret. And then there's even a moment where he's like, they give him a drive, and he's like, well, this drive still works. Why do you want me to erase it? And they're like, nah, just fucking, they're useless because it was the Empire. And he's like, I'm this drive. I'm from the Empire. But it's like that builds in this episode. And I think it's like an amazingly
regular old Cyril Karn.
Absolutely. And it's like, you know, it's like me, when I see things, I put all my feelings onto the things that I'm seeing, like the physical MacGuffins around me.
I'm this thing.
Yeah. I am my car, and I need an oil change. What does that mean? But the third thing that I really took away was the Bo-Katan stuff. Part of me is like, this is great. She's found some friends. Part of me is like, oh no, this is like watching someone join a fucking cult.
Heaven's
we
Gate
need to
or
warn
something.
her. Yeah, get away.
She's pretty hesitant too. She's like, well, I don't walk the way. She like,
I know,
folds her arms. She's like,
but then you're also like, she has been taking her helmet off forever, and she suddenly just after bathing didn't want to do it, and then she looks at the mythosaur as if it was like a crucifix, and then she does the whole like the procedure, and I felt like when you're not Catholic and you take communion, it's like going to a Catholic church and being like, oh fuck it, you just eat this, whatever. And I was like, I don't know, but I like the fact that maybe she needs to learn how to be a leader and get some buy-in instead of like, I need the fucking sword because that's all I once I got that sword.
Maybe the mythosaur changed her. Maybe she herself is a convert.
Which make it, that's what I'm saying, like 2 for the price of 1. You got 2 converts in this app, and I think this
the other girl too. You got 3 because it's the girl from the Empire, Pershing, and then
3 for the price of 1. Discounts all day. And I think this episode actually fits into the Mandalorian a lot. I don't know if it's that much of a bottle episode on its own, because Grogu is the main part of the Mandalorian. And there's a reason why they wanted to use Grogu for something. And Moff Gideon, they've mentioned in episode 1. So now we're kind of seeing this conspiracy of possible cloning, but also Grogu is still really important. And although we did have a Boba Fett episode where he seems to not want the lightsaber, people may still want Grogu. There's still something happening where Grogu's in trouble now, which makes the entire show still more dangerous a little bit.
They just need his blood for the midichlorians, and they know they can't get Luke's, so they're like,
Yeah, that's true. They give up on Luke.
I feel like that's why we saw that's the purpose of Pershing's speech at the beginning, because there was some like interesting cloning context where he's talking about, not just cloning somebody to have kind of like, cloned organs if something fails, like what happened to his mom, but like he was, dealing specifically in like splicing the best parts of different individuals, which I feel like is going to be an important Star Wars thing, because it makes me think that like that was the purpose of Grogu, was to, if they ever, I feel like Disney's really going to be afraid to mention midichlorians again.
No,
but if it's a quantifiable thing that you can like clone from say Grogu and put into, I don't know if the road is leading to making Snokes or like
that, I mean,
shit or whatever, but like
that's definitely the road. There's a lot of clone. I think we talked about this on all of the pods we recorded today. A lot of clone talk, like for the last couple of weeks, and I think it's it's definitely because cloning is important.
Boner for those cloners.
A boners for the cloners, baby. I want to ask y'all this. I mean, once we're on Coruscant, we see Coruscant, we see Din and Grogu traveling. Well, it would be kind of cool to see, the cowboy going to the big city.
I don't think that's. Isn't he like an outlaw? Like, why would he show himself in like somewhere where he's probably like
the galaxy has both? I think it'd be fun to have a fish out of water, and he's like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's a space vending machine."
Like from the New Republic?
Maybe even the
I don't think so. But like I don't know. I just feel like because like that Grogu thing is very force sensitive, and so like it's kind of thing where you just kind of like don't want to be in front of people.
Get Chris Columbus. Or you get Chris Columbus or Ron Howard to direct Grogu in Coruscant, and
Grogu's Day Out.
Oh, well, that's just a fun. That's
billions
of
dollars.
Joy.
He's getting into trouble. He's getting into trouble in rooms in the desert with nothing in it, and you're going to take him to Coruscant.
Studio Ghibli do it for a 2-minute short.
Oh yeah, he'll do it. He's going to like touch the Umat, and the whole thing crumbles or something. And they're like, "Uh-oh, what happened to the highest part on Coruscant?" Gonzo. Well,
hey, that was really cool to see in live action, by the way.
High Republic, baby. That's what I was telling John. I was like, they described this in High Republic.
They did, and I forgot. Like I was like, oh,
that's where Lena.
You
that's
need
where
to pay
Lena
attention.
Stowe.
Lena Stowe. Yeah,
Lena Stowe has a really great quote about.
She got to touch it.
She praised, it. Well, so did Dr. Pershing. Oh no, he didn't get to touch it. My bad. Sorry.
It's because he was ex-imp. That's why.
I think we're kind of already getting into this, but any other big theories around whatever G68 is up to, and I guess potentially whatever Moff Gideon is up to, because the other amnesty officers knew who Moff Gideon was, and they kind of had ideas at least of how kind of, I don't know, like his agenda.
That's kind of what I'm still a little confused about, is like her motivation at the end, like because the biscuits motivation. No, but like why she played this kind of like long con to get him to double down. Like, yeah, I wonder if it is a thing where like when she was in the Empire, she was gung-ho for the Empire. She was going to do anything for the Empire. Now that she's within the New Republic, it's the same way for the New Republic, where she's like,
oh, I thought
I think this guy.
I thought she was erasing his mind because she's still a Gideon person.
And I think now that she picked up the suitcase, so she probably has the material she needs to clone and doesn't need him.
To use Pershing to locate, identify the material, I
misread it. I think you guys are right.
Brett, anyone who eats the biscuits is bad. So any episode now, if you see, you gotta risk it. You're going to see like a moment in the end where Grogu eats a biscuit and his lightsaber turns red or something. And you'd be like, oh my God.
Oh no. Wait, so have we seen the last of Pershing, you think? Or
I think we've seen the last of his mind.
If Bodhi could survive Borgullet, then Pershing
maybe Borgullet can reverse it. They're going to get Pershing.
I told John, I said, to be honest, this mind flayer is just a mechanized Borgullet. Like they just found a way to weaponize it.
Yeah, I thought the mind flayer was going to be like a Borgullet type of thing. Like I thought they were going to hook him up to like a fucking like animal and just have it like fucking
erase.
Fuck his mind or something. That's
right
fucking wild.
before everyone who goes through it, Forrest Whitaker has to do the lies, deception.
They have a recording of Saw Gerrera of resistance or like rebellion hero Saw Gerrera in the New Republic.
I guess he would be kind of now, right? New
Yeah, he would
Republic like made a statue of him and everything.
The amnesty program is really interesting because we're watching something similar happen in Clone Wars, except with the clones, and it's not amnesty, it's just whatever, like they don't even care about them. And this galaxy has been through enough wars where there's like processes and stuff, but the amnesty program, I don't know. I mean, the Mind Flare is an intense version of this, but to be systematically like
dehumanized basically like
on another planet somewhere, you know, before you could be sent to Coruscant is interesting. I wonder if we'll ever see what the Republic is showing ex-stormtroopers to make them, I don't know, like be pro-democratic or something now. But it is because we're probably expecting millions and millions of people who are going through this program. Some of them don't need the Mind Flare. Some of them do. It kind of correlates to, I guess, what happened after World War II with the Germany, with the Nazis in Germany. They didn't all go to jail.
With like NASA scientists, right?
Yeah,
like where they had them helping out with that,
or they went to Brazil.
We're able to do science again.
It's like you can't. What happens when you have an entire evil population that just suddenly loses?
That's the wild part that they're covering in Clone Wars and in here. I mean, Clone Wars Bad Batch is that like how you dispose of the people who surrendered or the people that you defeated or whatever. Very interesting.
It looks kind of rough to them too. Like I don't know. To me, it looked rough. Like,
it gave me Bad Batch vibes with the way how they're starting to treat clones and kind of discarding them. And then also, even some of it reminded me of Jedi Fallen Order at the beginning of Braca, like the shipyard of like getting rid of all the ships of like the Clone Wars eras, even though you could repurpose them or recycle or whatever to do good, like the way Pershing is saying here at his Cyril Karn entry job. But
yeah. There's also, I mean, it must be some kind of psychological thing that they go through because we get that droid too that Blade Runners everyone, and they're like interlinked. How do you what happens? You know, how are you feeling right now? Do you have any bad emotions? So I wonder. I mean, I'm sure we'll see more of that because that process is really interesting, and it's kind of crazy to think about how cyclical things are, but it has to happen again after the First Order, maybe, you know, like it's every 30 years there's just millions of people that are disposed of or retrained or are just messed up. And can you imagine if you're a race that lives long enough for all of them and you're just like mishmashing?
That's why Yoda's so wise, man.
I know.
It's just all a cycle, baby. This is all going to repeat.
It sounds like Coruscant's the place to be during anything that happens in the galaxy. It's like wars everywhere else, you know, maybe touching some of the core planets, but on Coruscant, if they don't even remember the names of the wars, then they're kind of maybe untouched, at least in the upper end. And here's what I'll say. Listen to this, John Oliver. Sounds like America to me, baby. We don't know about half of the bad things happening in the world, you know? We're just here podcasting at night.
Luke Skywalker, who's that? What do you do?
I'm not joking. Hey, listen, President Barack Obama. I think you should watch The Mandalorian.
Hussein Obama.
Learn a little bit about what Americans are thinking about. But I can't wait for the whatever happens on Coruscant to kind of bleed over into the rest of the stuff. There's any other big things you want to talk about?
I mean, you ended with it there. Like, I'm just really curious, like, to what end did we see this? You know, it's like, it was really cool. And like, it's, I think, much needed context, but it's like, is it going to tie back into like Grogu and like kind of like the initial, you know, purpose of like Herzog's character trying to get him? And if that's the case, like are Bad Batch and Mando headed to similar things of like, we got to get this, this youngin for the cloning. And it's like, I don't think that's the case, but
Drew
like
wants a legit crossover.
Well, and to me, yeah, and I really do like show the Bad Batch like older. That'd be fucking
Yeah.
amazing. But
And
but
Tamora Morrison, like
also,
as
I think
Tech,
that
old Tech.
yeah, hell yeah. That's
Mary
why I think
Defeat.
it gave me a lot
Honest Mike.
of Andor vibes because you got to see how exactly the rebellion started, and you get to see little hints of it in Rebels and stuff like that, all these different cells. But I think that's what we're getting here with the First Order, essentially, where you have people that think like this, that kind of feel trapped, or you're just kind of mistreating, which isn't an eye for an eye isn't the right way there. And it kind of sows this other side. You don't even know what it is yet, but there's an opposition to what you're really doing as the big picture that you think is all good. So yeah, I'm excited to see if we see more of like these are the seeds that basically made the First Order possible.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
about to say, I was like, Admiral Thrawn, at the end of all this whole like big like crossover like thing that we're gonna get with these like Disney Star Wars stuff, Admiral Thrawn's gonna be the guy who
And
like formed the First Order. Like he's gonna be the
and
guy or something.
and that's why I think you got to show him in Clone Wars too, baby. Well, I mean, in
Yeah.
Clone Wars Bad Batch,
Bad
where it's
Batch.
like show a young Thrawn, and then you show an older Thrawn in Ahsoka, and now everything's suddenly connected, and it's wild.
Yeah. We already saw Space Whales. It's marching
Cargill.
that way.
I'm
They're already
telling you,
casting Ezra.
it kind of supports my theory that they're gonna do the Thrawn trilogy like loosely but between 6 and 7. Like I think that's gonna happen with the
I
shows.
could see an
That would
evil
be cool.
clone
Because
Luke
cloning,
being the
big part of
villain
those books.
Yeah,
Huge
evil
part.
clone Luke in fourth season of Mando, fifth season of Mando as the antagonist or something. I can see it.
And we're going to see Mara Jade and the twins.
Mm.
There is a gripe I have about Star Wars and this episode that I wrote down and I forgot about this. So listen, President Barack. I'm just kidding. No, they got to figure out what is up. I don't know what the lore is behind the computers of Star Wars, because in this episode and in Andor, like the floppy disks have to be examined under a microscope. And in this world, like the floppy disks can also create holograms or be plugged into like decks. So I don't know why people need to be looking at stuff with microscopes. Like just plug it into a computer.
That's
That's
very
the tricky thing
What's
when
the computer lore in Star
when
Wars?
Star Wars starts answering questions, it like unties Pandora's box. That's not a fucking.
It wasn't tied.
Untie
There's a
it
lock.
and then open it.
It opens Pandora's box where it's like this isn't
It-
typically a thing that answers a lot of questions. It's just kind of like this is how things are. So when
Yeah,
you have an
robots?
episode like this where it's like bam, 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 you're just like, whoa, hold on, like you're chasing answers now.
They're looking at SIM cards on a microscope, and that's how that's
That's how you check the
data
data.
is done.
You don't get
Hey.
that USB. The folder doesn't
If-
come up. You look at the folder on the fucking thing.
If that was your one complaint for this episode, I'll take it.
But
Not bad.
R2 can just plug in and talk to it. I don't know what's going on. They're
He's
just
a fucking
wasting
robot.
time.
They have enough droids.
It's all
man.
based in tech that was made in the 70s, bro.
Let's go around the horn and talk about our final thoughts on this episode before we go into plugs. Brent?
Yeah, I feel like we covered pretty much. It was a lot happened in this one, but yeah, it's kind of a weird episode in terms of like the structure of it. But I appreciated it, and there were some really awesome moments, and I liked the kind of betrayal of Pershing and kind of like seeing his journey. I don't think any of us really know what it kind of means yet, like what it's building to, but I assume that it's building to something that we'll see. So, but yeah, it was really cool to get like context on the New Republic, what that looks like, since we've never seen what that looks like canonically. Like there's all this legend stuff, of course. But yeah, seeing Coruscant post Return of the Jedi is really cool. And then of course, kind of unexpected, twist in Bo's journey, in Bo-Katan's journey. Like it feels like she, the mythosaur kind of helped to convert her, to being, believing in the kind of like mythical Mandalorian myths again, which is an interesting turn. And I'm
It's
curious
like
to see where it leads.
Look, for all of the hardcore Christians out there, it's like when Saul saw God and believed in God and became Paul.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about that, right? The road to
Saul Goodman, yeah, he saw God
Yeah.
and became
the
Well,
apostle
it's when he
Saul.
saw him at the mall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then he,
Jesus and Saul turned Paul and was at the mall by Dr. Seuss, the non-canceled writer.
Yeah, but it was a good app.
Drew, what'd you think about this app?
I liked it a lot. It makes sense on why it needed to be weird because they needed to have those bookends to please the casual fan or the people that love the pew pew lightsaber force power. I just want to see Starkiller bring a Star Destroyer down to the ground type of person.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Which is fine.
You know what? I do want to see that.
And that's Mando, baby. There's all these different flavors of Star Wars, and it's okay to like all of them, or it's okay to not like some. But hey, if you're
this episode had a
Andor,
Neapolitan, like
yeah,
this
or
episode
if you're watching
okay.
Andor, I can hear someone explain it to me. Yeah, he was in prison for this episode. And I was like, damn, so much more happened, bro. Like, you have to start to like really think about it, or really maybe go into the actual Star Wars lore, so that way it means something to you. But we talked about this, I think, in our Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania episode for Countdown to Infinity, where it's like, man, if you do your homework, you're gonna benefit so much more than just casually. Oh, I watched Rise of Skywalker 20 times and that's it. Yeah, and so yeah, if you do your homework, you're gonna love it a whole lot more. Trust me, and it's worth it too because little things like Bendu Day is enough to kind of do it for you. Or watching the Purrgil flying next to Grogu, like holy shit, that means the world. So, yeah, I like this because again, not a lot happened in this episode, but so much happened at the same time, and I do appreciate the little slice of Andor they served me, especially because I was waiting. I've been waiting so long for an encore or for more of that. So yeah, I appreciate all the lore and getting to see Coruscant again and seeing the new stuff and even being with different characters that I didn't think that we'd ever see. I think it kind of it's not it gives me hope to see what we're going to cover in future Mando episodes because now I know the sky's the limit truly with this.
Yeah. You said earlier that there are some things for people who only watch The Rise of Skywalker 20 times and nothing else, which makes me think, are you logged into my Disney Plus, Drew? Are you seeing what I'm watching?
I knew it was you.
And did it start telling you how many times? John, what do you think about this episode?
I thought it was great. It's a weird little episode. You got everyone's mentioning the Andor vibes. I wish it was better directed like Andor. But
Damn,
it does give
Lee
vibes.
Isaac Chung, Oscar-nominated director of Minari.
Maybe it's just the practical Roy.
I kind of agree, man, and I love Minari.
Well, that's my
John,
point.
We're putting this on YouTube, so he can actually see you say this.
I'm just saying, like straight up. Like I think I was talking to Drew when I was watching the episode. I was like, "This is cool, and it's really good." But I was like, "But it's not Andor good though. Like it's trying to be." And I appreciate it for the swing, but like there's something missing. Maybe it's the practical sets that Andor has. Maybe it's the close-ups. Maybe it's just the quality of acting that Andor has. But like it's really, I love for this of a swing to give us all this lore and to give us context of what the New Republic is. It's really cool. Like I think it's awesome. And then even tying it into to a very like almost like non-related like Mando storyline is cool too. Because again, it makes me excited to see. I'm assuming we're going to be back on the Mando train like in the next episode, even though I do kind of know now you kind of teased me with like some New Republic lore and I'm just like, what you cooking? Give me more
more lore.
But yeah, more lore. But I'm excited to see like the Mando stuff too. I do want to see where Bo-Katan's going with her arc. It seems like her arc is seeming to be a little bit more interesting to me than Mando's, and Mando is just like this is the way type of shit.
He's hanging out.
Yeah, he's just hanging out. He's chilling now. He got there and now he's just like, I don't gotta do shit. Like I'm assuming he's in the next episode. He's just like chilling on a beach, and then chilling with that giant turtle that like almost killed him during that baptism. Cool ep. I'm excited for more Mandalorian stuff as always. But this one really did kind of like affect me in being like, okay, you could get into some really cool like. Probably like deeper shit in here, like the way Andor did. So like it does give me like the way Drew said, it kind of gives me a little bit of hope for like more Andor inspired. I wasn't saying Nandor inspired episodes in the future.
and Laszlo.
Yeah.
This is interesting episode. There's a lot that I think is revealed because we know that there's a broader conspiracy going on. I guess there's like also a common theme of like fanaticism a little bit, because we know that the Enclave, they might be a cult for Mandalore, and then whatever G58 is into, she's definitely still she's like that into whatever the goal is of Moff Gideon, that she is erasing the mind of someone, and maybe doing more. So and then for people who are really enjoying the new family of Bo-Katan, Din, and Grogu as mommy, daddy, and baby, this episode is like meeting the in-laws, because Bo has to meet Din's, effective family, and we're getting
her new mother-in-law.
Her new mother-in-law, and I takes off the mask is probably Steve Martin or something really fun for a nice family rom-com. But everything else is really cool, and I can't wait to know why they want Grogu's blood. And I don't know, and I think this will activate whatever their next thing in the journey is, at least for our core group, because we still don't know. Like, where are they going? Are they trying to reunite Mandalore? Or are they trying to save Grogu from something insane? Well, we'll be back next week to talk about the next episode. It'll be really fun. It's half the length of this episode. Next week's episode is only 30 minutes long. Though the changes in these eps in runtime is wild. But we'll go around the horn and give some plugs. Brent, what do you have to plug?
Check out the Delphin Pod Patreon stuff. We just put up our Mount Rushmore of favorite Oscar wins of the last of the 21st century so far. We pick our 4 favorites each of any category, so that was fun. We also did a reaction to the Oscars, and I swear to God, I think we're done with award show stuff for a long time. So
no Tony's
holding off
coverage. Fuck,
we gotta go to Broadway. The Great White Way.
Oh boy.
Tread
Cover
the boards.
The Tonys now. We're gonna do our EGOT of podcast episodes, covering all the shows. That's kind of a fun idea. No, that's bad. But
that's cool.
I shouldn't have put that out into the world.
It's a whole year.
But yeah, it's too much. But yeah, go subscribe to that, because there's also just lots of other stuff. Screen Slush, where we talk new movies, shows we've watched. It's a lot of fun.
Drew, what do you have to plug?
Mostly, Screen Slush with another award episode next week. And Countdown to Infinity with another Ant-Man episode next week as well.
We love it.
We're at 9 episodes deep in Ant-Man for a Countdown.
We
to
definitely
Infinity
have
and
new
award.
ideas, Drew. Damn. We don't get mind flared every week.
But mostly the Dirt Sheet Radio. If you love the wrestling atmosphere, it's WrestleMania season and all that good stuff. I heard The Rock's coming back for WrestleMania. Wow. That's a lie. I just want you to go check that out.
John Cena went back.
I'm baiting you. Yeah, John Cena. That's cool. Whoa. Peacemaker. Nice. better DC. Better DC property than Black Adam.
If Bautista comes back, I bet he gets nominated for an Emmy, because he's a good actor.
And then check out the Revenge of the Sequel, ROTS, as people like to call it. For that, longest running show on this thing.
Wow, in the world.
On the internet.
On the internet.
On this thing, I said.
On this.
You know what? We joke, but like we might be rivaling like some podcasts that just like start up and just don't, like we might be rivaling like Nerdist, I guess. Like that only went on for a couple of years before Hardwick did his thing and then undid his thing, I guess. So.
God, coming for Lee Isaac Chung and
Hardwick.
Chris Hardwick. Yeah. Those two are on your list, huh? Damn,
there's just something about those guys. Anyway.
Those two.
Yeah.
They both have in common.
I'm going to plug everything that was just plugged. I just took a look at Screen Slush. I think I want to kind of there might be some cool stuff on there. I have some ideas for some shit that I can't really say out loud because they probably just won't come true. So like I'm just gonna keep them up here. Go check out Revenge of the Sequel. All the cool stuff at the Delphin Pod Patreon, Countdown to Infinity, and this podcast too. I'm a real big fan of our High Republic era of Countdown Strikes Back. I know that I don't know if anybody else is, but you guys should go listen to that stuff because that's actually really cool, and that's like probably the most fun I've had learning about Star Wars in a while. So yeah, go check that out too.
Don't act like we didn't notice that we didn't finish Rebels. We noticed.
Ooh,
The
yes,
show? We didn't finish?
We did not finish
we only
Rebels,
did
and I was
Clone
like,
Wars, baby.
yeah, we
And so
did
now that-
season 1 of Rebels, and then that's
No.
Oh, you're talking podcasting.
podcast.
I
yeah,
thought you were
exactly.
talking about
Oh,
watching
yeah, no,
the
we've
show.
never
I was like,
seen
are
it.
you?
No, but we
gotta
have an
finish.
entire
Yeah.
like whenever we want to get into Rebels,
Kanan's
we can
alive,
get back
right?
into it.
Ooh,
Sure.
Oh,
I'd love to rewatch.
this is a big Andor episode. We'll
Mhm.
see you next week.
Mandor. Oh.